All right. Okay. There we go. All right. Hey, hey, hey. Hello, and welcome to our weekly stream. There we go. All right. How's everyone doing? Hey, hey, hey. Hello, and yeah. It has been a day so far. I still have a lot to do. Like, let's see. I need to go shopping for a couple new pairs of socks, and I need to work out and film some more content for Patreon, and then I'll edit that tomorrow. But it's outside of that, it's just it's just a lot with job hunting still and doing my best in that regard. So just taking it a day at a time, and yeah. Good evening, first time made it to the stream. I love your reactions. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. That's so sweet of you to say. Thank you, Rebecca. Yeah, I'm really glad you could be here. So, some exciting news regarding the reactions. Uh, so I've been filming anime content for Patreon, but recently I started filming, but those are going to be exclusive shows, but I've been trying to get some anime content just for, not just, but for YouTube as well. And even though I know it's going to be a real nightmare getting copyright through that, I'm gonna really try my hardest to start down that road as well. I would love the opportunity to not just share my thoughts on music, but on broad themes discussed in visual storytelling. Hence, something that mixes well with the channel name. So hopefully that'll turn out sometime soon as well. But the editing on that is very difficult. Just trying to get it through copyright is a nightmare. Trying to get music videos through copyright is a nightmare. For many of my videos, I actually don't even get paid for them until a month after I publish them, because I gotta work it through the copyright, and it's really, really tough. But hopefully I can get that more on a streamlined process. I refuse to change my video format of the regular, this is my reaction, and then doing it again for the analysis, not just stopping it all the time. Because I also really enjoy reaction content, and it always drove me nuts, especially for music content, when people would stop every 5 seconds. So I wanted to try to have as much of a structured full reaction as much as possible. So yeah, glad you liked Morgan James. Yeah, she's absolutely wonderful. I saw her now in Two Things, which was all about that bass and Dream On, and I'm not sure if she's the one who did Take Me to Church, but I think that's going to be the next postmodern song I take on. But yeah, just just a remarkable voice. Honestly, I love her style, and she's really great. Also love your reactions. Enjoy the technical detail you go into. Well, thank you, Ann Jeanette. That's really sweet of you to say. Thank you so much. I try to be a little bit more. What's the word I'm looking for? I try to make the approach to music theory as palatable as possible for non-musicians, and there's plenty of times where where I say something and then I realize, oh wait, I can't say that, nobody's gonna understand what I'm saying, so I say it again in a different way, and I just completely cut it out of the video, and it's a little tough trying to take very challenging musical theory concepts and simplifying them to a universal understanding of, and it's I give so much credit to all of my university professors who taught me music, because I always had a really difficult time learning music theory and music history and counterpoint and analysis and harmony and things like that, but for them to really just have as much patience as they did with me, because I'm someone who needs to go out into the world and experience something in its absolute purest form. Like, I will fully submerge into something and experience it as much as I can in order to learn and grow from it. And if I'm truly invested in something, and when it came to music and fully investing myself in that, oh my gosh, it took me so long to figure out and understand concepts, ridiculously long. And and while I'm fortunate that I eventually started getting a grip on it, oh man, it's you gotta really love music to put yourself through that kind of mental fatigue, I'll tell you. Bob Newart just died. I'm not great with names. Oh my gosh. That's tragic. It's always really challenging to accept when a comedian has passed. That's tragic. Like just recently, hearing Shelby and Richard Simmons, their passing was tough. Like, my first introduction to Richard Simmons actually wasn't through his VHS workout videos, but it was actually, I was first introduced to him from an episode of Whose Line Is It Anyway? And his charisma and personality was so overwhelming at the time. And my mom actually has a personal encounter with him, and she explained that to me, and it's there's just so much beauty that can come out of just people in general, but especially people who are able to laugh at life like comedians can. And it's always a tragedy when they pass, but at the same time, you know, death is nothing to be truly sad at. Like, it's wonderful that we can grieve, because grief is an acknowledgement of the impact someone had in our lives. But at the same time, it's a part of life, and we move on, we grow, we appreciate, we reflect, and we get the opportunity to share the kindness that they've shared with us with others. And I think that that's a beautiful display of their memory and our humanity. I speak under correction, but Dan Vesk has no copyright issues. You are free. Well, yes and no. So with Dan Vask, I do still get hit with copyright, but it's not complete rejection of monetization. It's more like I have to share the revenues that I make off of my videos with his copyright owner. And I already don't make a lot off of these videos. But, you know, he's a great artist, and I'm happy to share. Well, you are succeeding. I don't even bother with other reactors anymore. It's the theory that I enjoy. Oh, well, thank you so much. I'm glad that I can provide that element of education and knowledge into my reactions, so that you can not only feel entertained but actually feel like you're gaining something of real value from it. Thank you so much for saying that. Hi, bin auch zum ersten Mal dabei. Ich finde deine Konzentration vor allem bei Dan Vask. Mein Englisch ist nicht gut. Leider gibt es hier keine Stufe. Viele Grüße. I understood most of that, but let me just double check. Yes. Okay. Well, first off, thank you so much for saying that. It's very kind of you to say, and welcome to the channel. I'm sorry, my meine Deutsch ist nicht gut, aber just Dankeschön. It's I'm sorry, I haven't practiced German in quite a while. I've been focusing a lot more on Japanese recently, because I'm trying to plan a trip out there in the next few years. But yeah, I actually just really love German as a language, and I really should spend more time with it and get back into the swing. Speaking a language is not like riding a bike. You don't just learn it and then have it with you. Learning a language is definitely something that atrophies if you don't practice it essentially every day. It's very much like working out. If you ever try to do cardio one day and you're in a really consistent cycle, but then you take 3 days maybe away from the gym and then you come back in, all of a sudden it feels like you've lost everything. That's why I don't skip days anymore. I always go to the gym. It's like I just can't get back into it's very, very difficult to get back into a swing of things when you lose all of your momentum. Momentum is everything. I have his comedy on CD. Yeah. I mean, screaming out loud, nuts. Yeah, I mean, there are plenty of reactors that do that. I've seen reactors that have a lot of technical knowledge as well, but only listen to the run through once and are stopping every 5 seconds. And for me personally, that's not how I enjoy music. When I listen to music, even if I really want to pause it at some points, depending on how heavy the music hits me, ultimately, I still have to get through the entire piece because I want to feel as close to the artist, to the composer, to whoever wrote it as much as possible. Because there's obviously a reason as to why certain elements of the song are picking up here. Or, like, a great example of this would be Pentatonix's rendition of Hallelujah, where it starts small and then it grows and then it hits the brakes, and then it grows again, hits the brakes, grows a final time, and you just get this consistent cycle of momentum. But even though the pacing speeds up and slows down, the momentum never stops, and you just feel this atmosphere that is just constantly around you. And their rendition of it alongside Jeff Buckley's is it I was so I'm gonna share a not so much a deeply personal story, but there was a time when I was in college, an acquaintance of mine, a colleague of mine, passed away from a motorcycle accident, and I remember going over to the street, like the cross section street it happened on, and I sat there for a while, and when I looked up at the sky, it was primarily overcast with breaks in the clouds where you legitimately see these beautiful, opaque streams of golden light radiating down right in the center of the street, and off into the distance as well. And keeping in mind that that the majority of the sky itself is overcast. And I couldn't help but think of the song, even though I was just sitting there reflecting on the relationship I had with him. And as I was reflecting, the song was playing in my head. And I think that that's a really beautiful element of music that we don't often reflect on, which is music is there for us to comfort us even when we don't necessarily think about it. It's just there's a particular emotional response that music can give us and will surface from our subconscious in moments where we might feel a certain level of any emotion, really. So I think that I recall that memory with poignancy, but with also a certain level of gratitude and appreciation. Hi, Ren. It's amazing storytelling through music. I have not. I have heard of Hi, Ren, but no, I have not heard the piece. And it's a little challenging because there's a lot of musical artists that I've been told to react to, or that people have requested for me to react to, rather. And it's very challenging to storytell through music. People might think that it's pretty simple to do. All you have to do is write a story and put it to music. But it's very difficult because when I listen to music, I love experiencing the sounds of music. And like that's how I enjoy to listen to music leisurely. In terms of like scrutinizing music or engaging with music as a career, then I go more into storytelling through music. But if you guys notice, like the first videos on this channel were story like books, not with music, mainly because I can just focus on the story and not the music. Like I've done reactions to Nightwish that I never put out onto YouTube because it's difficult for me to listen to the message of the song when I'm trying to just experience the music for what it is. And I really, and just storytelling through music, the reaction videos are going to be much more challenging to make because my initial playthrough of it, I'm not going to get any of the story. Because I'm too busy enjoying the music or submerging myself in the music and not paying attention to the lyrics or to the messaging or the whatever. And honestly, like, I think it's beautiful that people are able to put like their own thoughts and feelings through messages and meanings and things like that in music. But at the end of the day, to me, music transcends language. It can use language as a tool, but I don't think the purpose of music should be to like proselytize others or to explicitly share a particular mindset, let's say. I really love the idea that music can be used to evoke certain emotions, that the same piece of music can be used to evoke a myriad of different types of emotions, rather, from a myriad of different types of people, and do so without the use of language. Not to, like, again, not to say that language shouldn't be used in music. It absolutely should be used as a tool at some points, but like some of the biggest pieces in the world that have moved me emotionally to my core are a couple of Chopin's nocturnes, Rachmaninoff's Vocalise, there was, I believe it was, oh my gosh, what was his name? I think his name was Glass? Jonathan Glass, maybe? His Banshee piece for playing the inside of a piano. That's so haunting and chilled me to my core. And I think that there's a lot of real beauty in those elements of music. So when it comes to listening to storytelling mixed with music, I don't think that makes for great reaction content. I mean, I'm more than willing to do it, but it's probably going to be something closer to Patreon, mainly because I do need time to reflect on the words, on the messages, and not just sink into the music and not hear what any of them are. When I listen to music with words in it, in actual messages, all I hear are just vowels and consonants thrown together, but I'm not actually hearing the language. Even if it's my own native language, I'm not hearing that. I'm just hearing how the voice meshes with the rest of the music. So, because again, I just love the music. Everybody is entitled to their own messages and their own view and their own life story to be put through music, absolutely. But it's just not how I experience music, which is why I don't necessarily talk about the themes or the messages of music or the themes of songs that often. If there's a particular theme that I really want to talk about and discuss, I will, but it's very rare for me to just dive into the lyrics themselves and talk about the messaging of them if I've never heard the piece before. Leonard Cohen. I'm lukewarm about anyone else singing one of his songs, but Pentatonics comes close. That's fair. That's fair. You might consider trying it for the emotions and the strength of the storytelling, and it's a guy with a guitar and essentially a one-take video. I mean, that's Philip Glass. Yes, thank you. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it doesn't mean to say that I haven't experienced really incredible storytelling, especially done in one take. Like, I like hearing the what is it? Somewhere Over the Rainbow by Izzy, I believe his name is. That moved me tremendously, and it was so simple. It was so simple, and I loved it. I still love it. Or what's another one? There was one done in a single take, and I just can't put my finger on it. But regardless of what it was, like, the first time I ever heard Jeff Buckley's rendition of Hallelujah, it was just, it was so raw, emotionally raw. But I already knew the piece Hallelujah before I did it. And I had so many comments asking me to do Dan Vask's Hallelujah. And I'm probably going to do it. But you have to keep in mind, Hallelujah is one of the most overplayed classical music pieces of all time, at least in my view. I have sung it religiously throughout my middle school career, my high school career, and my collegiate career. And I'm just a little burnt out from it. And to be honest, I think Handel is a very well-renowned composer. I know he is, and his name lives up to his music and all this stuff. But honestly, I think his music is just so textbook. It's well written and it's structured beautifully, but it's so textbook. It doesn't have any flavor outside of its one-toned flavor. It's very vanilla. It's not that I have a problem with vanilla. Vanilla's delicious, but it's very vanilla, and I'm more of a chocolate man myself. Rocky Road, Jamocha almond fudge, coffee, or just like I like different flavors. And Mozart really comes through with that. Beethoven really comes through with that. And a myriad of other composers as well. Schubert, Schumann, Wolf, Strauss, Wagner, etc. The ukulele player, that one makes me cry every time. Yeah, him. Yeah, I believe he was cremated and thrown into the sea. And I think that that's rather beautiful. My mother would also like to have that post-mortem extrication, let's say. And honestly, I would also like to be cremated after hopefully my usable organs have been donated. The soundtrack from The Mission, Irino Marcone, the first track on Earth as it heavens, it's just so good. Yeah, I believe you. Absolutely. Yeah. Water music is a very unique and bizarre type of music. And I haven't been exposed to it enough to really form my own opinions about it. I only remember hearing it a couple of times and just gauging what my initial impressions were. And I can really get behind it, but it's not something that I can listen to for a long period of time. Like, if I were to utilize it in such a way as to create a sense of background noise or white noise, let's say, like I would listen to synthwave or lo-fi music in that way, I could probably do that. But if I were to actually sit down and listen to a recital of it for an hour plus and actually listen to the music itself and not just perform other tasks while it's playing in the background, yeah, I don't know about it. But that being said, it's a little bizarre. It's a little bizarre, but I do appreciate it for what it is, absolutely. And I love how people are constantly trying to generate new ideas in music, even if they're not good. Just the fact that people are going out of their way to cultivate something new and not just rest on the shoulders of giants by just taking something that's already been written and perverting it ever so slightly and calling it their own. Like, it's really nice seeing people go out of the norm in music. Absolutely. Man. Like, I'd say a really good a really good composer that always goes outside of the norms, doesn't, like, he pushes music in so many unique ways. Like, and the artist I'm referring to is Cosmo Sheldrake, and I've done his cover of, or Pentatonix's cover of Come Along, but the original, like, I heard his live performance in France, which is on YouTube, and he uses recordings of fish. He does a lot of improv in his shows, and he is just an artist who truly has fun with music. And I love that, because very similar to pretty much anything, the only way that you can actually be creative and have fun in something is if you are actually skilled and good in that thing. Like, if a person is to have fun, say, playing a sport like baseball or volleyball, they're not going to have fun absolutely getting crushed. They're only going to have fun when they're playing with people who are of their skill level. And if everybody is at a certain skill level of competency and execution, then all of a sudden everybody can start playing around with different ideas and just have a really good time with it. That's why you see artists like Jacob Collier just constantly smiling and having a real good time with his music, because like Cosmo Sheldrake, they both just have a fundamental understanding of music and just play around with different ideas, textures, concepts, and just create their own style of music. When I first heard Jacob Collier's rendition of the Flintstones, I was taken aback. I was so dazzled. Philip Glass did the soundtrack of a movie with no words. That is astounding. Oh, that's awesome. One of the best lines from Amadeus was when he mentioned that certain kinds of music remind him of excreting marble. Creating marble. That's such a graphic image, but that's hysterical to me. Yeah, I actually really love Mozart's backstory. Sorry to leave, but I have to get some sleep here in South Africa. Oh, well, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate you being here. Have a wonderful rest of your night. And again, thank you. But yeah, in terms of Mozart, yeah, he had an affinity for music at an incredibly early age. Both he and his sister. If you guys have actually ever heard any of Mozart's sister's pieces, they're absolutely wonderful. And Mozart has gone on record saying that his sister was an incredible composer and player as well. And it's really unfortunate that we don't have more of her uh, documented pieces. But with that said, Mozart started touring with his father at such an early age that when he and to make a living for being a composer at that time, you essentially had patrons and commissions. And Mozart was commissioned constantly to keep writing pieces like Handel did, like his teacher Haydn did. And they were very textbook pieces, very structured, very, like I was mentioning, very vanilla. And Mozart desperately wanted to start writing operas, and he just couldn't do it. So when he finally extricated himself from the bonds of commission work and actually made such a strong name for himself and made his own money, his brain exploded with ideas. He wrote everything down as fast as he could, and it's common knowledge within the classical community that that Mozart wrote the overture to one of his most famous operas, Don Giovanni, the night before it premiered on stage, and the orchestra got it the day of, and we're like, all right, time to go. Time to learn it really quick. Very thankfully, an overture is essentially just music that will be played, musical themes that will be played throughout the entirety of the opera. So it's not like they had to learn a tremendous amount of new themes, new ideas that weren't expressed at all throughout the opera that they haven't already practiced. But it is incorporating a lot of themes and meshing them together before the opera actually begins. And it's usually anywhere between a few minutes to 10-15 minutes. So it's really quite beautiful that a person can be so involved in music and just explode their thoughts. And that doesn't mean to say that it's exclusive to music, just music is the medium of which I connect the most. Speaking of musical themes that I hear a lot, that I should actually pay a closer amount of attention to, especially when I'm there. Like, if... So, an article that I've seen recently is that Danny Elfman is arranging the land theme of Epic Universes, which is a new Universal theme park in Florida. And he is composing the score for the land of Dark Universe, or the Universal Monster themed land section of that park. And I really love Danny Elfman's music. I think his style is very whimsical yet haunting, very reminiscent of Disneyland's Haunted Mansion. And when I first saw The Nightmare Before Christmas, I was stunned. I was so transfixed, not just by the animation of it and how cool it looked, but the music itself. I thought there was some haunting elements and interesting guile being expressed, but there was also a lot of charm and whimsy and playfulness about it, and I really dig that. Let's see. But yeah, like I was mentioning, in terms of just themes in theme parks, like musical themes in theme parks, I really should spend more time listening to them because I think those themes really do add a lot of unseen kinetic energy in lands. So I should definitely keep my ears open for those themes and just take the time to sit down and listen to them. Man, I am so tired. I have not been getting a lot of sleep recently. Just been grinding away, doing my best. Ooh, I love Danny Elfman. Jack's Lament, especially when being sung by Jeff. Swoon. Yeah, yeah, I thought Jeff did a wonderful take on that piece. I love the line so much of, and since I am dead, I can take off my head and recite Shakespearean quotation. And I just love the flow. And it's so whimsical and charming, but the flow of it is just so wonderful. Yeah. And I love the playfulness of Kidnap the Sandy Claus. That might be... The closer we get to Halloween, the more I'm going to pump out more Halloween-themed content, which will probably include Kidnap the Sandy Claus by Voice Play. I've been trying to reserve some Halloween-y stuff, even though I know I've been doing a few Halloween-y things and Christmas things here and there. But yeah, I'd like to jump in on those opportunities closer to the seasons when they come around, which shouldn't be too long. It's July. Also, in term if what Janine, if you're still here, I'm absolutely going to start putting up subtitles for my live streams as well. I know I've been slacking a little bit on subtitles for the videos, but that's just because my recording schedule and editing schedule, I'm trying to incorporate more time to record and edit videos because I'm really trying to launch my Patreon soon, and I've had to cut some areas of what I would normally be doing in order to allot more time for these elements. And unfortunately, the subtitles were one of those things to go. I do still update them when I can or have a little bit more free time to do so, but I have to cut into personal time in order to get into subtitles, and it's just a lot. But I promise I will get to it, and I will start doing it on live streams as well, because I would love people of all countries to be able to engage with these live streams as much as possible. Danny Elfman is a great composer. One of the things I love so much about Voice Play is the whimsy in so much of their work, and they can rock an Elfman tune. Yeah, absolutely. The fact that they did... I'm pretty sure they did all of the songs from The Nightmare Before Christmas, and I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to react to them. An opportunity that I've never been able to do, that I still really want to do at some point if they're able to keep performing it, is seeing The Nightmare Before Christmas at the Hollywood Bowl with Danny Elfman and Ken and not all of the original voices, but at least most of them, or a majority of them. I would love to I'd love to be there for that. Yeah, I've been to the Hollywood Bowl a few times, and I believe the last time that I went, I saw an opening act from an a cappella group that isn't as well known, but I really just dig their humor and their whimsy, is Straight No Chaser. They're actually the group that brought a cappella into the mainstream light back in the 90s, I believe. And yeah, they're just wonderful. Members have come and gone over the years, but their arrangements and their style are still the same, and I dig it a lot. But they were just an opening act for the main act, which I was more than ecstatic to see in person for the first time, and that was Weird Al Yankovic. Like, I remember hearing his tunes when I was in elementary school, and I grew up with a lot of his music and his parodies, and man, what a legend. What a legend. I love his take on music, and on top of it, he's actually an incredible musician. And I don't mean to say that he just does like some what is it? Just some comedy here and there. No, like, to play the accordion at the skill level he does is, and just be a performer at his skill level. It's just remarkable. He's an amazing musician. Oh yeah. Just, he trolls his crew, he trolls his audience, and he trolls himself. And he's just, you can tell, just based off of the way that he interacts with people, that he is such a sincere and compassionate person who has an affinity for weirdness. And man, I just respect the absolute hell out of him. John Williams' Jurassic Park. When they first see the herd free ranging, the entire score from Schindler's List. Oh my gosh. John Williams, I really don't believe that there can be another film composer with the legacy John Williams has. He made Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Jurassic Park, Schindler's List, E.T., the list goes on and on and on. And yes, John Williams, much of his music was heavily inspired from pieces written before him, like The Rite of Spring and The Four Seasons and things like that. But he's a legend. He is a legend. An amazing composer and conductor, for that matter. A lot of people confuse being a composer for being a conductor, and they are two very different things. You can have the same band of musicians, or the same group of musicians, performing the same piece written by the same composer, but if the conductor is different, the piece is going to sound different. And that might sound a little pretentious coming from a musician, but it's absolutely true. I remember when I was in university singing with my university's top choir, and we went out to do a music festival. And we performed a piece that was recently written. And it was a very simple piece, but it was gorgeous. Gorgeous. And the way that we performed it, there were very specific accents of holding on to specific consonants, leading into specific phrases, tapering in certain areas, adding these types of vowels, these types of textures, these types of dynamics, none of which were written into the music. But these are the things that we wrote down in our own music and practiced vehemently. And when we performed it, it was the most dazzling piece out of any complex musical piece that was there. And then the following year, when we went to the same festival, other schools performed that same piece because they saw how we performed it, and they just didn't, they just weren't at that same level we were at. And you can audibly hear it. Like, our conductor was a real hard ass. And he was very intense and a little crazy, but like, I remember there was one time he brought in a bop it, had no idea what it was. And he's like, I uncovered this bop it. and he's like, and now let me show you how it works. As if we didn't know how a bop it works. And when it just said bop it, he immediately hit it. He didn't. Like, the whole point of bop it is to flow with the ever-increasing tempo of it. Like, bop it, bah, twist it, bah, pull it, bah, kind of thing. But nah, he's just like, bop it, bah, twist it, pull it, bah. And he's really just an incredible musician. But he just couldn't figure out the timing of that toy. It was so hysterical to us. And he was a little crazy in that way. But man, his musical knowledge and the depth of his comprehension of the flow of music, unlike any musician I've ever heard in my life. And it was such a privilege singing under him. Like, I wouldn't join in. He's retired since then, and I wouldn't rejoin his choirs because I was under an immense amount of stress performing under him. Like, an immense amount of stress, not just within the choir, but outside the choir. There were times in rehearsals where you could not hide in the choir. If you sang a wrong note in a piece, he would stop the entire choir, look over at you directly, but it would be a glaze over the section saying basses, but specifically one, and you know who you are. If you do not get this together by tomorrow, you're out of the performance. And the performance could be months away. And you knew. He knew every voice in that choir, and he knew the moment you were out. Like if you guys have seen the movie Whiplash, like, he wasn't as abusive as J.K. Simmons' character was, but he was just as intense. But he was like, it was terrifying being in that building with him. And the dean of our department, of the music department, knew full well how intense he could be, and he. Oh my gosh, it was insane. But man, when you really practiced and got your stuff together and went out on stage and performed, not to say that we had perfect performances every time. There were absolute nightmares we had, and we knew the repercussions of what was going to happen during intermission. Oh my gosh. But yeah, just nothing lit a fire under your butt like his intensity, let me tell you. Do you think that most composers could conduct, or that not all conductors could compose? It just seems that to write, especially orchestral music, you have to be able to hear it. I mean, yeah, it's a pretty complex and nuanced question that has its own rabbit hole to go down. There's a ton of nuance that goes into that. Because in terms of that, our choir conductor that I was just mentioning, he was a composer and an arranger and a conductor, but his expertise lied in conducting. He knew how to manipulate and like sound as a whole. And I feel like in order to be able to express what it is that you want to hear, like if you're a composer, you can compose something and hear it in your head, and you can write it all down. You could put it through MIDI, which is general music compositional tool, and you could put it through any music software, and you can hear how it sounds in a physical space and add different elements on top of it, like reverb to hear how it might sound in a particular hall or something. But you need good people skills. And I'm not saying you need to be kind and compassionate, but even though that would probably go a long way, but you need to be able to have incredible felicity. You need to be able to express your thoughts in a way that is apt, accurate, and that all people performing your music can understand. And that could be delivered in a kind and compassionate way. It could be delivered with intensity and ferocity, with guile, with however it is that a person chooses to express it, as long as everybody understands what it is that the conductor wants, then yes, a conductor can very well be or a composer can very well be a conductor. But that being said, a conductor isn't just someone who stands in front of an orchestra and waves in 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, or waves in 3, 1, 2, 3, or 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or whatever the meter is. The conductor is the person who is with the orchestra throughout every rehearsal. He is, or she is, the one who is constantly changing, manipulating all the fine details of music within the music, and saying, all right, horns, this is where you're going to have a very slight decrescendo into this new dynamic, while the strings, you're going to crescendo through here. And that might not be written into the music, but maybe the conductor wants a very specific sound to be emphasized in order to bring a certain climax or point in the music to be more rounded, because the conductor thinks that that element is more pronounced in a particular section, or whatever the case is. And on top of that, the body movement, the way and the fashion of which the conductor moves. There's so much that goes into conducting, then people realize that maybe not all composers can conduct well. Not to say that they can't conduct at all, because, I feel like if you spend 10 minutes with somebody, you can just say, all right, all you have to do is 1, 2, 3, 4 for 2 hours, and that's all you have to do. And a person can do that. But to do that in the right time, to know when, especially if a piece accelerates or retards, you have to know when those sections come up, and to lead the orchestra. You are the leader as a conductor, and it is very difficult to highlight certain accents, to keep in time consistently throughout the entirety of a piece, or throughout an entire work, especially if there's no intermission. really challenging being a conductor. In music school, we had to learn the fundamentals of conducting, and many of us, no, all of us were all music majors in some way, and most of us were performance majors. I was vocal performance, but we had musical prodigies in piano performance, in percussion performance, in the double bass, in trombone, a myriad of instruments. And learning conducting for each of us was quite the challenge. I'd say it was even harder than learning movable do on chromatic solfege. And movable do on chromatic solfege just means that when you enter a new, like, let's say you're in the key of C major, which is the very standard key, and the key all of a sudden moves to A minor, then do on C, the new do, the moved do, is now A, because we are now in the key of A minor. So instead of saying that C is do, C is now me, do, re, me, fa, sol, la, te, do. And to know when a key change happens, even if it's not specifically written in the music, but tonally you can sense the shift, that's when the new do appears. And learning that was considerably easier than learning the intricacies of conducting. It is so hard trying to keep in time with your intricacies, even if the sheet music is written right in front of you with all of your little notes. It is tough. It is really, really tough being a conductor. I give a lot of credit to not just composers, but conductors. One of my roommates in college, who was a buddy of mine until after we graduated, then we just fell out of touch. He's a remarkable composer. And his conducting was pretty basic. You know, like, the piece itself that he composed and conducted sounded wonderful. But I have a feeling that if a person who was a savant in conducting, I'm sure he could elevate that piece to the next level. Like, not even within the same ballpark, but the next level. And the piece was already incredible. So I think conducting and learning the intricacies of conducting is a skill in and of itself that can go far beyond what people might perceive it to be. Oh, wow, I missed a lot. You need to be able to talk to people like you're all human beings. Yeah. Nodding along with what you're saying. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to make, like I mentioned earlier, there are plenty of times in my videos that when I say something, I often have to cut it completely out of the video because I feel like it might be too technically advanced for my audience of non-musicians. So I try to explain things as in layman's terms as often as I can, but it's really difficult expressing very complex ideas or even just musical ideas themselves and musical tools outside of the realm of music. It's so difficult. And I'm trying to make it simple, but it's so tough. I'm so sorry. Like, in order to accurately express it, I would actually have to teach it with a piano, and I'm just not going to do that. I'm just like, it's not worth the hassle. But I appreciate you guys nodding along. I'm so sorry. I'm trying my best. I do understand that conductors have to have great musical sensibilities. Absolutely. Absolutely. Hans Zimmer comes to my mind as a composer and conductor, and he knows how he wants a piece to be played for sure. Absolutely. Hans Zimmer, incredible. Love his music. I worked with a director who was a madman. I adored him. He would come to me and tell me he wanted to see in that character other actors, would give him copious notes on the entire performance. Yeah, absolutely. I worked with a director as well who was also kind of a madman, but he would intentionally draw out deep insecurities because he knows, he can read in your eyes that you are an avoidant type. You don't look at your insecurities because they cause you pain to confront them. And when he sees an element of a piece that can reflect an insecurity, but the artist is intentionally shying away from, he will spend the remainder of class, and the rest of the class will just watch, of him progressively extracting out that insecurity and bringing it to the surface, as much as the artist is pushing against him, saying, no, this isn't what I'm doing. We would just watch in awe. And we all knew that this was coming for us as well. So it's not like we were judging whoever the artist was, like, experiencing an insecurity. He constantly prodded me, too. But it always made us better artists. It always made us better performers to be able to confront these issues in a realistic light. Absolutely. And the notes he gave us were seemingly endless. Like, if we had, say, a 4-hour rehearsal, 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., I remember there were plenty of times that we were let out at 11:30, let out at midnight. Plus, like, there were grueling rehearsals with copious amounts of notes, and we would just drill them religiously. And man, it was tough, but you do what you do because you love it. Excuse me. You do what you do because you love it, and you love making something for people who will come to watch you, not just because they want to support you, but because there are people who genuinely appreciate the art. And that's actually a reason as to why I really don't even ask my friends to watch my channel, and I don't even bring up the channel unless they really want to talk about it, because I don't want people on the channel to just say, I support you, here's me supporting you. I want people to be here because they want to be here, because they actually get something out of my commentary and my reactions, just anything that I can provide as a service. And the fact that you guys are here off of your own free will means so much to me. Like, I express this at the end of my videos all the time, and I doubt anybody watches the end, but I'm so deeply grateful, especially just all the time. Not just for everything that I have, but for you guys actually choosing to engage with the channel and to comment your honest thoughts. Even if the thoughts are heavily, or even if the thoughts are just harsh criticism with no real basis in truth, I can at least respect the fact that somebody took the time out of their day to say, these are my emotions in terms of how I feel about your content, and that's it. You know, in terms of the content itself, like, I do think people can generally feel a lot happier if they incorporate a certain level of discipline into their lives, a certain level of self-accountability and accountability for not just your own actions, but for your own feelings and how you act upon them. Being able to understand emotions considerably better than just sinking into them. Like I mentioned before in several other videos and live streams, I think using emotions that we generally perceive to be negative, such as any of the cardinal sins of lust, wrath, greed, etc., or feeling consumed by rage, frustration, envy, jealousy, bitterness, acrimony. I think if utilized well, and utilized in a way that ultimately doesn't just serve you, but serves the greater good, you can utilize the immense amounts of energy that those very intense and fiery emotions can provide you, and utilize it in a way that's ultimately productive and beneficial towards the greater good. However it is that you perceive what the greater good is. And the greater good is not your community of people. It's ultimately how it could better serve your environment, how it can better serve humanity on a fundamental level. And I feel the more we label things, the more we divide ourselves from us versus them. And that kind of dualistic binary mentality is it's something I will continue to push back against. I'd imagine being a conductor and a director would have a lot of similarities. Yeah, I'd say so. And I mean nodding because what you're saying makes so much sense. I have no background beyond some school and church group. Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for so much for that clarification. I mean, I feel most people generally don't have music education outside of maybe piano lessons when I was 10 for a few months, or the recorder when I was in elementary school, or something like that, or like you mentioned, the church group. And honestly, just the fact that people incorporate elements of music into their lives, I think, is beautiful. But it doesn't even have to be music. Just any art. Anything that can connect people together, builds bridges between cultures through any medium that transcends language, I find to be enormously beneficial. I really loved looking at Japanese art and Chinese art, and then comparing that to a lot of Western art is striking. It is just, the differences between them are just striking. But there's great elements about both of which I deeply appreciate and feel a strong connection with the artist for. And I think that that's such a beautiful thing. You know, I try to find the connecting thread of humanity in any medium of art, whether it's film or music or physical art of sculpting or glass blowing, maybe metalwork, whatever the case is. I try to find the real beauty in that. And it's so hard trying to appreciate the true beauty of other people when people are always in your face screaming, do you know what this artist stood for or what this person was or all of these things? And they try to point out a lot of terrible flaws in their character as a person or in their humanity or in their just general way of thinking and just saying how they're a terrible person. And I'm like, in humanity, all of us are not only going to have views that another would, of course, disagree with, but we're going to have a ton of mistakes and regrets. And if we say something that we might not feel is necessarily true, but the intention behind it was, say, humor, or say, to spread a message of maybe compassion, but it ended up being, I don't know, exclusive, let's say. Or sounding exclusive, maybe. Like, it's hard to pinpoint any particular issue, but, like, you have to respect the intention, the vision, the execution of what so many legendary people in history have done. Like, MLK Jr. wasn't the... You know, he wasn't Jesus, but he was a man of tremendous integrity and compassion and open-mindedness. Like, he had his faults, absolutely. Same thing with Gandhi. Same thing with Benjamin Franklin. Same thing with Abraham Lincoln. Same thing with... excuse me, Walt Disney. You know, you can find a myriad of faults and say that this decision was terrible, it had no beneficial use whatsoever, and all of these things, and, well, you can't respect this person because they had this view, and you have to respect the nuance, you know? Like, the fact that they might not be a perfect person, but they're just trying to live their life in a way that makes the most sense. No one person has a real grasp as to saying, I know what life is all about, and I have it completely figured out, and you should follow me because I know what I'm doing in life, and I have it all figured out. I feel like those are the most untrustworthy people. You know, never believe someone who says they've found happiness. Always trust people who say they are seeking. Because the moment that you put all of your eggs in one basket saying that, oh, I found happiness in this one thing. Well, what if that one thing atrophies? What if that one thing changes? All of a sudden, your static image of them has to evolve with it, and you no longer love that thing. You know, it comes to the point of the world and everything in the world is always in a constant state of flux. It's always going to be changing and adapting and evolving over time. And I think the most important thing to remember is that we're humans. We're animals. We naturally grow and change and evolve over time. Not just on a grand scale, like through evolution, but on small scales. I've mentioned this quote from author Elbert Hubbard, who had once said to a person who disagreed with an article he wrote one day, she wrote into him saying, you know, I heavily disagree with you on your viewpoints. I really just don't understand how you can even view things this way, etc., etc., etc. And he wrote back to her. He responded to her saying, you know, I don't entirely agree with it myself. Not everything I wrote yesterday appeals to me today. I'm interested to learn what you think on the subject. Indicating that we don't have to harbor the same views that we did a year ago, a month ago, a week ago, even yesterday. But it has to be true and authentic. You can't just say, I'm a new person and be a new person. It takes a long time to understand an issue, understand how you internalize that issue, recognize the faults in your own way of thinking, understand where it is that you want to be in terms of this issue, and take and construct real actionable steps moving forward towards that goal. And that can happen at any point. But it has to be real, and you have to internalize it as real, and it has to be genuine. And it's quite an arduous task for many people, for most people, I feel, because you've already made your statements public to the world. How would the world respond to you if you took everything back and said that you have to humble yourself? You know, it's terrifying. You know, you're definitely going to have a bruised ego, a bruised self-image, and you might feel areas of resentment in your own life and regret, but you know, that's a part of life. That's a part of change, and you become so much wiser and stronger and more capable because of it, you know? Oh wow, I missed a lot again. Dang it! Being imperfect makes us human. Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. Thank you so much for your heartfelt sharing. Unfortunately, I have to run because it's storming here and I need to unplug my computer and my phone. Oh my gosh. And when I meet a perfect person, I'm running the opposite direction. Yeah, absolutely. But thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your kindness and support on this live stream and videos if you're there. And just thank you for being here. It really means a lot. Each has his or own imperfections. So mindfulness for me is perceiving others without judgment. Yeah, honestly. Like, even if we have intuitive reactions to things where something just very naturally rubs us the wrong way, whether it was based in childhood trauma or a specific experience that ultimately resulted in a negative outcome, and you relate a lot of events in a present situation and make them tantamount to the previous situation, you know, regardless of initial reactions to things, I think it comes down to the point of, if you can sit with yourself and reflect on, how is it that this viewpoint is going to impact myself, impact others? How do I want other people to perceive me? And this is where it gets very difficult, because the more noble, the more righteous, and the higher level of honor and integrity that comes with creating ideals for oneself, the more immensely challenging it's going to be to live up to those ideals. And I don't think people recognize the immense amount of personal sacrifice that goes into truly living by righteous ideals. And it's much easier to say and to speak about one's own righteousness, but all that does is just create a mask. It just creates a facade, an image that you're righteous. But actually living up, if you are truly a person of righteousness, truly a person of high integrity and honor, then it's not about the image. It's about the actual actions of. And practicing that day in and day out without any recognition, but doing so because you know it's the right thing to do, that's tough. And it requires an iron will and consistency, drive, dedication, and complete alignment with the expectations you have of yourself and the goals you ultimately set out to achieve for yourself. And it is tough. It is really, really tough. But You know, I do believe there are people out there in the world who are capable of living by those standards. And I see those people as tremendous inspirations for myself as I continuously stride down that path. But I mean, even today, I find myself faltering in many of those areas, and it is really hard. And I have been practicing this for since early, well, more. I've been practicing this since mid 2021, and it has been an arduous grind. I've been toiling away constantly, but I think that the more I do it, the easier it becomes, but it needs to be more consistent. I definitely need to have stronger, more reflect, like, I reflect on my actions at the end of every day, but I feel like I need to make that more tangible. Like, I need to create real actionable steps to get me to where I know I can be in terms of really adhering to my life's task and the values, morals, principles, ethics that I've constructed for myself through my years of experience and trial and error. We all have these subconscious programs, and if we recognize those, we have won half the inner battle already. Yeah, absolutely. But it also means I have to admit that I'm not the glorious guy I pretend to be, and have to remove the decades-old facade. Not many want or dare to do that. Yeah, absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree with that. It takes a tremendous amount of humility to recognize not just your own faults, but but having a tremendous amount of humility is very difficult in and of itself to actually cultivate. But even beyond that, that's just the first step in wisdom, in betterment. Like, accepting the world as it is something I feel the majority of at least my social milieu is incapable of. They can only see the world for how they want it to be, and not how it presently is and what they can do to allow it to evolve over time. We live in an instant gratification culture, and the moment we don't get something immediately, the more agitated we become and the less level-headed we are. The more prone we are to striking out of violence or anger. And that's very present in the political divisiveness of the world right now, especially of the West. And it just comes with everybody is just doing their best to structure the world in a way that they believe is truly right. And while that's noble, the world trying to structure, like, I don't know if anybody has, like, tried to set up a time to meet with friends, just a regular meeting, just to hang out, but it is tough. Like, not just understanding everybody's schedule, but if they actually even want to do it, if they want to be there, figuring out a place to meet at and to enjoy each other's company and all of these things. Just doing the best you can in your own social circle I think, is already a noble pursuit. Doing the best you can for others in your circle takes a lot of time, and it's arduous. And let alone trying to structure society and understand the immense intricacies and nuances of politics and planning and and just all of the nitty-gritty details that people don't really want to learn. They just say, people respect laws. we make this law, people will respect. No. No, it's not that simple. It's not how it works. And I feel like if people stopped trying to structure all of society by their wishes and just took it down a couple notches, just focused on being a genuinely good person in their own friend group, in their own circle, then it would be considerably easier to actually create friends outside of our friend group, because you're not worrying about all of the stresses of all of the world and constantly exposing yourself to a myriad of different opinions from a myriad of different people around the world, but you're rather just communicating with a circle, expanding that circle the more adjusted and comfortable you are with it, understanding different cultures, different mindsets, different perspectives, allowing yourself to broaden your horizons progressively, not all at once, but in a way that makes sense to you, in a way that allows you to understand another culture, another viewpoint, a varying perspective, even if it's polarizing from your own beliefs. And just taking the time to listen with an open heart and an open mind, and not be immediately repulsed or reject what it is they're saying, but understand that they're living their life in a way that is as rich and authentic to them as the way that you live your life, in a way that is just as rich and authentic to you. And taking the time to just broaden your worldview with other people's experiences, and to grow and to expand your thought processes and what you think you're personally capable of, and the expectations that you have of yourself and of others and of your environment. All of that will grow with time, but it's not going to be instant gratification. It's a very long and arduous process that's going to take a lifetime to achieve, and you're probably never going to fully achieve it. It's just something you're constantly making progress in. And you know, it's really tough. It's really tough because I see a lot of young people leading their lives under the presumption that they're going to live forever, even though they know, at least on some level, pragmatically, that they're not going to live forever. I don't think many of them have really accepted death, because that's always a very touchy subject. And to accept that we move on, we pass away, and whatever your views of the afterlife are, or if there's just nothing and your consciousness just fades with the rest of your body in to the universe, it just comes to the point of, we are all ephemeral beings, and we all have to do what we can to promote unity as a species, but also promote strength in our communities, promote strength in oneself. And ultimately, it is being capable of saying, like, it's important to recognize that communities communities have their own values. And I'm not saying, like, these are the list of morals and laws that we need to have, but more of, communities have a purpose, a fundamental purpose, just as much as traveling abroad and experiencing another person's culture has its own fundamental purpose. And the more we choose to segregate ourselves, I think, is not the wisest of things. But that being said, to be involved in esoteric or niche communities where we can truly find a semblance of happiness in, say, a hobby or a particular viewpoint in structuring a park, let's say, or whatever it is, that we can share different ideas and different experiences and collaborate and corroborate on different ideas and structure things that will allow our that will allow our next generations to come up, be successful, find the flaws in our current way of thinking, and just keep contributing. And the more we can do that, I feel the more we can actually benefit from each other's personal experience. And each other's personal experience isn't going to be just happiness and good vibes. It's going to have pain. It's going to have discipline. It's going to have suffering. And and all of those things are truly great things because it gives you a realistic impression of the world. The world, no matter where it is, no matter what kind of utopian society you envision for the future, it's never going to happen. Human nature will never be restrained. And it just comes to the point of, again, accepting the world for how it is, understanding that all you can control are not other people, but only your own actions. Yes, you can influence other people, especially people who are particularly vacillate on a myriad of issues, but that's why I find it to be all the more important to educate yourself, especially read books like Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power, and also his book, The Laws of Human Nature, where you can understand when people are trying to play power games with you, try to manipulate you, or maybe Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People, to recognize when people are playing games with you just to try to get you on their side. And it's not even like they're trying to get you on their side, they're trying to get your vote on their side. They're trying to get extra force or to spread their message. But it's not you as a person, unless they actually take the time to sit down with you and are genuinely interested in you and genuinely want to become a friend of yours. But there's just so much nuance and complexity that goes into humanity. And is this person asking me these questions because they're serving their own self-interest, or are they genuinely curious in me? You know, you have to discern that for yourself. You need to educate yourself. You need to grow. You need to read. You need to be able to go out into the world and explore many of these ideas and test them. And me, of all people, I'm very socially awkward, and I have a very difficult time reading other people. And even though I've gotten better with it, I make a lot of assumptions that I think are correct in a moment, but end up being wrong later down the line. It's a very fine line, but as someone as introverted as I am, I still have to make an effort to go out into the world and to engage with strangers and to get their mindsets and viewpoints. And I've been absolutely dazzled by the humanity that I've seen in the most unexpected places. I remember not too long ago, I was at a cafe and I set out a chessboard for anybody that wants to come by and just play a game with me and maybe talk about life while I was reading my own books. And this one man who was doing DoorDash, he had recently gotten out of prison, and he was just trying to make a better life for himself. And he was telling me these things, and without any semblance of judgment, I'm like, hey man, I'm really happy for you. Good for you for taking the initiative, trying to go out there, make a living for yourself. I know how hard it must be to try to get hired with a criminal record and to try to secure an apartment and all of these things. So honestly, just seeing you make this effort, it's very inspiring. And he got pretty emotional from that. And to see moments of real humanity like that, where I'm sure that if he ever brought up the fact that he was a criminal to anybody else before, they probably increased their guard against him, became even more closed off, and tried to get away from him. So the fact that I approached him with tenderness, not vulnerability and weakness, but genuine tenderness and no judgment of the kind of person that he was in his past, but recognizing the effort that he's putting into his present. There's a lot of true beauty and humanity that goes into those moments. And I would have never have been able to experience that kind of elevated feeling of humanity if I didn't put myself in that situation. So it just goes to show that you never know what you might experience the more you have an open mind and an open heart and genuinely engage with strangers, especially with strangers that are outside of your own moral matrix or outside of your own communities of people of which you heavily identify your self-image and ego to. So it's a very challenging and nuanced minefield to navigate, but the more you do it, the more adjusted you'll get to it, and the easier it becomes over time. Consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds. Was that Emerson or Wilde? To be honest, I don't know. I would have to do a little research on that. But consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds. The hobgoblin of I think consistency in terms of right action and mindset, as to however you define what your moral matrix and ethics are, is a good thing. But it's a very interesting quote. I'd have to reflect more on it to internalize it easier. You can't directly change other people, even if you want people to change their views and behaviors. You have to change your own and invite others to do the same. Everyone should treat people that way. For me, that is mindfulness and kindness. Absolutely. There's actually a quote that I wrote down on my whiteboard back here that I'm probably going to read in a second that just relates to this so well. And yeah, you know what? I'm going to read it. Gonna get my glasses. Can't see without my glasses. Okay. You must allow everyone the right to exist in accordance with the character he has, whatever it turns out to be, and you should serve, and all you should service to do is make use of this character in such a way as its kind of nature permits, rather than hope for any alteration in it, or to conduct offhand, or to condemn it offhand for what it is. To become indignant at people's conduct is as foolish as to be angry with a stone because it rolls into your path. And with many people, the wisest thing you can do is to resolve and to make use of whom you cannot alter. Arthur Schopenhauer. Just the idea meaning that you can never really change someone. Again, you can manipulate if that's something that you feel is good and necessary, but no, I don't. I think it is beneficial to provide perspective and to allow people to make their own choices, but to proselytize others into your own viewpoint And I feel most people don't even recognize that that's actually what they're doing. um, it just comes to the point of being kind, being considerate, showing a little nuance for a person and their ideas. You know, if a person is just harboring a ton of hatred, but living their life in a way that makes sense to them, then that's it. That's it. It sucks. It's hard to see, but you know, out of everything in their life, this is the result that it's come to. And you know, they choose to live in this state of acrimony. And for me personally, I can't understand why people choose to live in, say, a victim's mindset, or in a mindset that's just so resentful of other people all the time. And the only conclusion that I've come to in terms of that mindset, and I'm sure there are other mindsets and conclusions that can be drawn, but the only one that I can even fathom is just the fact that they've spent so much time crafting and molding their self-image, their appearance, their facade, that there's no real substance under it. So that's why they don't have an issue harboring so much resentment and hatred towards other people or other groups of people, because they don't even recognize their actions as bad, because they don't really have their own ethics or moral matrix or value system. It's being borrowed from the community of which they serve. And if the community is telling people how to feel, it gives people an out to not cultivate their own values, to not really structure their own lives in a way that's authentic to them. Because it's very difficult to structure one's own life, to structure one's own values, to actually engage with the world in a way that's rich and authentic. And that takes a lot of work and a lot of self-reflection and even meditation. And it's arduous. It's arduous. I'm not saying that you need to be ascetic, but it's very challenging to consistently reflect on your own actions and interpret not just what your actions mean to you, but how they could have impacted others, and how your actions rippled out into the world in ways that you might not even imagine that have indirectly affected others. You know, it's very difficult perceiving the impact you have on the world just through your own mundane choices, let alone important choices. So to live a life solely in one particular emotion, whether that emotion can be perceived as negative, like acrimony, for example, or even just, oh, I just want to love all the time, I think that's really dangerous. Like, we are human beings. We are designed to experience the full array of human emotion and experience. Yes, we should feel sadness. We should feel resentment and bitterness and greed, you know, just all of these different elements. We should have an awareness of what these things feel like, how these things can take root in our minds, and how it is. But if we can have the wherewithal and emotional and mental intelligence to be able to observe our actions from a third-party point of view, and to look down at us, and to look, more or less look down at ourselves, and to reflect on these are the feelings that I'm experiencing. These are the thoughts that I'm having, but I'm not going to let them control me or consume me. I know that brighter days are ahead. I know that the path that I've laid out for myself is one that I have faith and confidence in. And I know that I will not lose myself in these emotions. And to have that kind of healthy detachment, to be able to say, okay, now I understand a little bit more what it means to be filled with absolute anger towards one particular person. But instead of utilizing that anger in an initial reaction of violence, I'm going to utilize that anger and transform it, evolve it into positive action, into a I'll show you mentality, and utilize that intense amount of anger energy that you have and utilize it towards a just cause, a righteous cause. Or maybe if it's like I was mentioning in terms of greed and taking on what it means to experience greed. Amazing. Now that you've reflected on it and didn't allow it to consume you, you are now able to extend an olive branch to those who have gotten lost in their own greed. You are now able to express a stronger sense of felicity, a stronger sense of being able to appropriately express your thoughts in a way that makes sense to them because they're lost in greed. So if you can understand what it means to be tempted under the guise or veil of greed, then you can relate to them on a more humanistic level, on a more interpersonal level. The more that you expose yourself and recognize what these experiences are, the more you're able to build bridges with others and sympathize with others' feelings. Like, there's a lot of really horrendous action that people have confessed to me in the world, and I sympathize with them. I too have committed to terrible action, and I also have many regrets that I've made in my life. Many regrets. And that doesn't mean to say that I allow those regrets to burden me today, but I recognize the fact that I have made plenty of wrong decisions, and the worst regrets I have are the wrong decisions I made knowing they were wrong decisions at the time and followed through with them anyway. And when I see people doing those things, I sympathize with them. I understand why they're caught in that place, because in a world that's constantly beating you down, instant gratification is so primal. It's so tempting on such a core fundamental level that I feel like a Neanderthal embracing terrible decisions. Like, I've already put my hand into the fire, but in a world where I feel so numb, why would I want to put my hand into the fire just to feel something? You know, like, I can sympathize with doing negative actions intentionally. Not to say that I'm justifying them or saying that you have every reason to do this. If you know an action is wrong, you shouldn't do it, period. But I can at least understand the thought process that went into it. And hopefully we can create some kind of plan of action so you don't submit to your lowest instincts again. So you don't submit to, I just want to feel again. Or I just need an instant gratification because everything has just been one loss after another. Because something I've noticed about instant gratification is that the moment you have the thing, it becomes immediately very hollow. There's no real substance. The only things of real substance that I've observed in my life, for example, maybe not in everybody's, but in my life, being a person that my friends can come to because they know that if they went to anybody else, they would console them. I don't console people if I don't think it's warranted. If my friends come to me with a problem and ask me, what's your perspective on this? And what's your perspective of my actions? I'm going to be honest with them in the way that I'm saying, I'm not going to blow smoke up your ass. I'm genuinely here for you and to listen to you because I genuinely care about you. I have your best interest at heart in this moment, and that's why the harsh criticisms I'm about to give you are coming from a very genuine and pure, authentic place. A place of personal experience and sympathy, and to a degree, empathy. And when I give them my 2 cents, and to see the level of relief on their faces, knowing that they were finally told that what they did was cruel or wrong or was amazing and tremendous, but genuinely came from a place of, wow, that was really good, but came from someone who they know would not blow smoke up their ass and actually compliment them when it's deserved. That gives me the most amount of substance in human interaction, knowing that people can come to me for genuine criticism, because I know that they can, not just that I know that they can take it, but they wouldn't approach me otherwise. It's rare that they do, but when they do, they know what to expect. And there's a reason that they do. And that means the world to me, you know? I will eventually remember the essay title, but he was saying that you shouldn't expect people to think the same way all the time. Absolutely. People always build these habits and mindsets as a solution to an issue they encountered in their lives. They never had learned any other solution during their lives. Yeah, exactly. Mainly because I feel like if people are put in a terrible situation and they've worked through it, but it wasn't a real solution, then they'll just do everything they can to never engage with that situation again, which I think is wrong. You know, life has a very good way of testing you in the exact same aspects until you learn from it. And yeah, it just comes to the point of you just have to be a student of Jurassic Park, essentially. You have to be the velociraptor, constantly throwing yourself up against the electric fence until you find the weakness in it. You have to be able to take the hits. And, you know, I believe it was actually one of the Rocky movies where Sylvester Stallone said to his son, you know, nothing hits harder than life. Life is going to beat you to your knees and keep you there if you let it. But that's how you succeed. That's how you become a man. You know, you have to, if you're going to go out into the world and make something of your life, then go, do it. Show them what you're worth, but you gotta be willing to take the hits. You gotta be willing to roll with the punches. And it's so tough. It is so tough. But that's what inner strength is. That's what resilience is. That's what resolve is. If you truly have something of value that's worth protecting, you're going to protect it. You're going to go out into the world and get hurt and face the pain of the world, and you're going to do so with a smile on your face and appreciation and gratitude in your heart, and look at the world in a way that is optimistic and beautiful, but also realistic, pragmatic. People always build these habits, mindsets to a solution they've encountered. Yeah. You're coming up on 2 hours and you look beat. Let us say sweet. Sorry, I need 2 hours. Yeah, I mean, I still am very exhausted and I still have a lot of work I need to do. But yeah, this was a really lovely stream. I really enjoyed being here with all of you who are here. It really means a lot to me that you guys are here. I can't, like I say at the end of my videos, like, even though, again, I know nobody watches. I can't express my gratitude for you guys being here enough. Like, it really does mean so much to me that you guys are here watching these videos and especially engaging with these live streams. When I started these live streams, I really expected nobody to be in the live chat rooms for years. And after a few years, I might have had one, which might have been my mom. But just to know that I have so many people right now in this room. 8 people. Wow. I'm stunned. I'm absolutely stunned and so gracious and grateful that you guys are here and watching not just my reaction content, but hopefully soon I'll have anime content coming out as well. I'm starting with solo leveling, which is... I've only seen the first episode, but I can tell it takes great inspiration from the classes of Dungeons and Dragons, like having mages and barbarians and these healers, paladins. So I'm really excited to keep working on that. You briefly mentioned earlier that you're learning Japanese. How's it going? Yeah, it's going well. But unfortunately, I took a break from it in order to pump out more content for Patreon. And unfortunately, I've lost so much of it. Like, I had learned katakana and hiragana together, and I was able to put out all of the syllables by memory easily. And then when I tried doing it the other day, I couldn't even do half of them. Like I was mentioning earlier in the stream, it was just... if you don't practice it every day, you're going to lose it immediately. So the moment that I actually launch Patreon, it's going to be considerably easier for me to structure out my recording and editing sessions so I can allot more time towards studying Japanese. Japanese is such an interesting language. I find, like, I love how incredibly succinct it is. Yeah, it's an incredible language, and I love learning it so much. It's very challenging and complex, but I really do love the challenge and I just love Japanese culture. I think, and architecture, and I've been wanting to visit Japan for such a long time, and honestly, just based off of what I've seen, you know, I haven't been there, so my first trip there would just be a trip, but honestly, I would really consider moving out there and living out there. Like, well, I mean, I would want to travel the world and see the world for my own eyes as well, but just as a place to call home, that might end up being Japan. But we'll see. We'll definitely see. Useful when visiting. Oh, thank you so much. I'm going to copy that right now. Copy, paste. Cool. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I do not know what those mean, but I can tell that there is no kanji in that, which I am deeply appreciative of, which I because I know zero kanji. Actually, that's not true. I know mountain. I know mountain. I know mountain. Oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense. Yes, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for that. um, yeah. But yeah, it's going to take me a while to learn the language, and I don't want to go to Japan without at least being able to have casual and formal conversation with others. I want to be able to be as polite and incorporate myself into their culture as seamlessly as possible. I know they're going to look at me differently and view me differently as just a tourist or whatever, but and not really Japanese, but I'm perfectly fine with that. Yeah, I'm so excited for the opportunity to visit Japan and to experience that culture and that aspect of life. Plus, I'm very much like Naruto. I can eat ramen every day. And oh my gosh, what is that snack called? I don't have it that often, but I love it more than anything. Takoyaki. Oh my gosh. Fried octopus balls. My heart sings. My heart. It's so delicious. But yeah, so with all of that said, my battery is dying. I'm exhausted. But I had a wonderful time with all of you here. And again, I can't appreciate you guys enough for being here. Thank you so much for your kindness and your consideration and your open minds and open hearts when listening to me ramble for the last 2 hours. I can't express my gratitude for all of you enough. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you all so much for being here. And ganbate! And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your evening. Have a great night, everyone.